Hey guys, LevelCap here. Today is Monday, which means it's time for an episode of Loadout, the series where you guys get to pick my weapon and customization for each episode. The way you do this is you go to the comments and you leave a comment letting me know what kind of gun and accessories you'd like me to run with, and I will pick one of the top rated comments for the next episode. Today's top comment comes from Swiss Gameplay 97. He says Far Cry 3 Loadout, STG90, which we'll be using the SG553 for. With a red dot sight, foregrip, and suppressor. M1911 with suppressor or Magnum with scope. You can switch out the sidearm if you're dead. A normal rocket launcher with an RPG. Repair tool, ammo perk. Play on maps like Caspian Border. Use the bush to hide like a warrior. Wear the correct camo and try to survive. Use the free vehicles to win. If you don't sit in a vehicle, be sneaky. When I initially tried doing this, it was on Caspian Border, and it was a huge ticket game, and the entire forest had been destroyed. I couldn't really find any Caspian Border games that had just started, so I didn't have any good bush cover. So I switched over to this Death Valley Team Deathmatch game mode, and there's definitely some foliage around the map, but with the suppressor in the nighttime, I really felt like I was able to be stealthy really well on this map, and it will show throughout the video. I flanked the crap out of people. Now, the suppressor obviously is going to reduce your damage at range on this weapon, so long range kills are going to seem like they take a little bit longer. If you do have a stationary target though, this gun is still very accurate. The suppressor makes the recoil extremely easy to control, and so you can actually drop somebody who's stationary at range pretty easily. And although the map is kind of a nighttime map, I still went with the greenish paratrooper camo, which was really good for working around the outside of the map. Now when I went into the inside where all the concrete is, it didn't really help too much, but at the same time the suppressor just kept me off that mini-map. Everybody was focusing on people using non-suppressed weapons, and I was really able to get in there, sneak up behind, and deal some serious damage. Now if you're new to my videos, you probably aren't familiar with the fact that I'm in love with the Cobra sight for my weapons. I do like the red dot sight, but my big play on the Cobra sight is that it just doesn't take up as much of the screen as the red dot sight does. Sometimes the red dot sight will conceal your target. If you think he's in a certain area and you're pointing at that area, aiming down sights, sometimes you can conceal him with the edge of the sight. And that's just my one gripe against the red dot sight. Otherwise, I love the actual red dot. I'm not a big fan of the actual aimer on the Cobra sight, but for these purposes, the red dot worked out just fine. Now, as for using the foregrip in addition to the suppressor with this weapon, it's not a huge deal just because your accuracy at range isn't going to be great from the get-go. Foregrip on there is going to decrease that ever so slightly to compensate for some of that side-to-side recoil, which on the SG553 actually is fairly reasonable. It's got a left pull of 0.2 and a right pull of 0.4, which is on the medium to higher side of side-to-side recoil. So foregrip will kind of steady out the gun for you. But all in all, you're probably not going to want to aim at too long of range targets anyway. Now, I tried using the M1911 sidearm as much as possible. The simple situation was that the SG553 generally reloads fast enough that I don't have to switch to it, and just because this map is spread out enough, I could usually deal with 2 targets with 1 magazine if I had to, and the M1911 I only pulled it out a few times, and I don't even think I ever got any kills. I think I just winged a few people, they ran away, and I was able to just reload my primary. The SG553 has a nice short reload of 2.1 seconds and a long reload of 2.65 seconds. These are both incredibly low. I mean, they're not quite M16A3 low, but they're low enough to be able to handle yourself in close range combat, drop somebody, reload, drop somebody else in pretty quick succession. Now usually in loadout videos, when I find something that I'm not crazy about for a specific setup, I'll talk about what I think could have made this setup a little bit better, what guns would complement sidearms better, or whatever. In this particular setup, I'm actually quite happy with it, for team deathmatch that is. Now if I were playing a larger conquest game where there's a lot of friendlies around me, a lot of enemies, and we were pushing objectives, I might actually just go for the heavy barrel and foregrip on this gun instead of the suppressor and foregrip. But because we're playing team deathmatch where I'm being much more of a lone wolf, it's far less team oriented. Even though it's called team deathmatch, reviving and dispensing ammo and backing people up, that's far less a part of actual team deathmatch. And so for the lone wolf aspect, the suppressor for staying off the map is just such a huge benefit. It really helped me flank around behind guys. If they don't see you pop up on that mini map from using a loud weapon, then you can easily get around behind people. A lot of people will even hear your gun fire and not recognize that it's an enemy. You can shoot somebody right next to somebody else as long as their backs are turned. They won't realize that you're a bad guy right behind them. Now, I really like the SG553, and when I compare it on paper to something like the M4A1, which is just a powerhouse of a carbine, it's got 700 rounds per minute rate of fire for the SG, and the M4 has 800. You know, it's significantly less damage output. Its side-to-side recoil is a little bit more, its reload time is a little bit longer, the bullet velocity is slower, although when you put a heavy barrel on both guns, it pretty much evens out in that department. But overall, the SG553 doesn't have a huge amount going for it, but it's just very easy to control with the recoil. Lowering the bullet velocity, the rounds per minute rate down by 100, and having a slightly reduced first shot recoil multiplier, it just becomes very easy to keep this gun on target all the time. I mean, it's kind of like easy mode with this. You're just going to have a slightly less damage output. So sometimes when you come around the corner and you see that guy in close quarters and he's shooting you and you're shooting him, oftentimes you will lose that gunfight just because you're not quite dishing out as much ammo, as much damage as some of those other high damage carbines or assault rifles can do. Ultimately, I really like the SG553, and I actually really like this loadout for team deathmatch, not conquest, not some of the higher team oriented games. I find the suppressor just isn't useful in those maps because you're often running right next to teammates, squad mates, whoever, that are using unsuppressed weapons. You're kind of moving with the group, so at that point it doesn't matter too much if you have that suppressor. You know, people right next to you are pinging on the minimap, so they're getting shot at, and they may as well, your enemies may as well assume that there's somebody else right next to them, so you're not really saving anybody by using a suppressor unless you're on some sort of crazy flanking mission, in which case you might want to throw it on there. So that pretty much wraps it up for this episode of Loadout. I just want to thank you guys for all your awesome comments in the last video. There's a lot of cool loadouts to pick and choose from. Don't forget to leave your comments for this video, and I'll see you guys next time. This is LevelCap, signing off.